Hey, what's going on, everybody? Here we're with another coaches discussion. Today we're going to be going over a couple of different topics. We're going to talk about the decline, what stuff's going to come from Wade. I'm going to put my input in where it's appropriate. We're going to try to answer as much information as we can, put it out and we're going to try to condense it a little bit more than we did last time. Last time we kind of ran on. We're going to try to break this up. We're going to try to break this up into a couple of different videos. So if we refer to stuff that we talked about previously, we'll put a link in, and you can see that first video. But we might have to fast forward to it because I think it was about an hour and a half.
About an hour and a half.
Yeah, when we put it out there. So I'm Derek Jaworski with Happy Hollow Wellness. My gym's located up in Goodlettsville, and today we're at the Ogre Compound, and
in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and I am Wade Johnson. I am the owner and head coach, and you can check us out in a couple of spots real quick. The ogrecompound.com is our website, and we're still working on content. It's a process. You can find us on Instagram at _ogre_compound. And if you haven't downloaded the AppLift app onto your phone, check that out. I'm one of the AppLift coaches and currently active with active clients. And but if you're in the area and want to train, just there, you can find us on those platforms or email me at teamogre@outlook.com. So we're going to talk about the decline.
that's right. Yep.
So one of the movements, give you a very brief history. I'm sorry. Many years ago, I wrote for a magazine called Power Mag, and it was a magazine like Powerlifting USA. It competed with Powerlifting USA, and me and one of the other staff writers, his name was Bob Schaefer, became fast friends, and we would discuss training and things that we were working on, and he introduced me to what we use now called the steep decline close grip press. And so what I had been doing prior to that is I would have a heavy bench day. 72 hours later, I would do speed, somewhat like a West Side conjugate kind of thing, or a light day. And it just didn't seem to be very effective for me. And a lot of the direct triceps work that we were doing, it didn't usually bother me so much, but some of my training partners, we would have shoulder and elbow issues. And I was discussing that with him because back then we were all shirted benchers. Everybody benched in a shirt. And so, we were looking at what could we do to train twice a week, but I really felt like we needed the stimulus of another heavy day.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got people now, this isn't new.
Right.
High frequency training is not new, but you're seeing, the advent of it, come into play.
Yeah.
And I've used it even recently.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, what I find is that you can get away with about 2 heavy sessions a week for an extended period of time.
Especially guys.
And big guys,
Right,
especially.
yeah.
The recovery rate seems, for the smaller people, tend to be, it favors them, and females as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of science behind that, but the bottom line is, what we're looking for is, even with elite athletes, most of us in the strength world, we have day jobs,
Sure.
families, responsibilities. So you have a very condensed window of training. So what do we do to maximize that? And so Bob introduced that to me, and I resisted it initially. I was like going to use it like an assistance movement, and this went on for several months. But the basic idea is this isn't like the small decline that's a fixed decline that you see in commercial gyms that bodybuilders would use to develop the lower part of the pec.
Right.
The idea of the movement is that you're gonna go heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to use a closer grip so that we're keeping it a compound movement, because what we did is we completely eliminated triceps isolation, which a lot of people are like, no tricep work. But you can, I'm over 50 and my arm development's still pretty good. I don't do tricep work.
Right.
And again, we're natural lifters, and so we're always looking for the edge training wise. What do we do to maximize the training and still recover?
Yep.
and we're taking, Flintstones.
Right.
It's not a judgment, it's just the way it is. And so it allowed us to train heavy twice a week. It's a much steeper, as opposed to about like a 15 degree.
Yeah.
We're looking at
Commercial gym.
35 to 40 degrees, which is really steep.
Yeah.
And it's very unorthodox because it's going to be awkward at first, because you're going to learn a lot of people in the flat bench. We just naturally receive the bar high.
Mm-hmm.
So the bar path, instead of it being like a straight down or a slight slope, we're doing this and then hoping that we can press it back up.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I've seen that it doesn't work out that way.
Right.
And so you learn how to take,
Yep.
where your hands and arms are more perpendicular, not completely, but
Right.
perpendicular to the
Right.
ground. And you have more of a straight down, straight up. And then if you have, you got a fighting chance, where a lot of times where people struggle is they'll be a little too high, it bunches up, puts pressure on the shoulders, and then you kind of sit back and you've lost your power.
Yep. Yep.
So it's training that central nervous system and the neural pathway
Yeah.
on where the bench goes. Because I always tell people, no matter what we do in the decline, and I'm going to keep explaining why we do the decline, that it is only assistance for what we need. It's to do better at the flat. Yes.
It's assistance in a lot of different ways. Because
Right.
one of the things that I noticed when I started doing it is it helped me with like my handoff, because I am just getting that pulling motion down instead of like doing the typical like unrack and leave it high up over my neck. You
Right,
know what I mean?
right.
It really does reinforce that, getting that bar down
And for
low.
me, it helped me. We didn't do a lot of overheads at the time. Again, it was a time factor, and I was push pressing in the mid 300s, but we weren't training overhead, and it was simply due to the pressing power,
Right.
with the decline.
Right.
So we use the close grip because we want the tricep to be a primary mover.
Mm-hmm.
The steeper the decline, the lower you touch, and that's what makes it really weird, because you're touching within proximity of a few inches above the navel to the navel, depending on how, a big guy like
Yeah,
me,
Yep. Yep.
And the other thing is by nature of that, it's twofold. One is it takes an extreme amount of pressure off the shoulders,
Mhm.
because we do see pec injuries in bench press,
Mhm.
but by and large, it's an elbow or shoulder issue.
Mm-hmm.
So again, what we're trying to do is maximize the training time, train as heavy as we can and still recover,
Mm-hmm.
but minimize the chance of injury.
Yep. Yep.
And again, my shoulder injuries came from Olympic lifting and strongman, never from powerlifting. My knee injury had nothing to do with strength at all.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, I've had tweaks, I've had issues,
Sure.
but by and large, the genesis of those things had happened outside of the gym
Right.
and traditional methods of training.
Yep.
The other thing that we found is when I touch low and learn to have a more straight down and learn to push away instead of pressing up,
Yeah.
I'm pushing away. You learn how to create leverage by using the bench pad to push the weight away.
Mm.
So you're engaging the upper back, the traps, the upper back rhomboid area, and the lats.
And lats, yeah.
And what we know, with the body, is that the biggest, strongest muscle group in the upper body are the lats,
Mhm.
followed by the traps.
Mm-hmm.
And they become a mover, so
Yeah.
to speak. And it's not just chest, pecs, shoulders, and triceps.
Yeah.
But by nature of keeping it a compound movement, we are able to train heavy versus, a lot of isolation movement.
Yep. Yep.
That and here's one of the science things behind it, so to speak. They had a situation where they had an infrared camera.
Okay.
They took one of their lifters and he did a set of 10 press downs.
Yep.
At the beginning of the video, the the capsule of the joint is white.
Yeah.
At the end of 10 reps, it's red.
Yeah.
So now, does that mean I think tricep work
Right.
is ineffective? That's not what I said.
Right.
What I am saying, when we're being specific about our strength training and we have to maximize our time, what's going to give us the best bang for our buck, what's going to get us to our goal quicker, and for me, this is why I feel like I've been in the game so long and been able to stay competitive. Is what is going to diminish our chances of being injured.
Yeah.
And so that's what this kind of session
Yep.
does.
Yep.
And we've had great success with it. And both with large people, small people, male and female. Classic example, Melissa Garrett Kylo that used to train here. I want to say, I could be wrong. She at the time was the third woman to bench press in a shirt over 500 pounds. The very system, that I've
Right.
been teaching you
Yep.
is what she used. I went on to bench press as a master. I bench pressed in a meet 700 pounds. I benched more in training, but
Right.
but in a full meet, I benched 700 pounds. And this is again lifetime drug free.
Right.
And I've been lucky enough that
You've stayed.
I've stayed
Healthy.
relatively
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah.
I've had tweaks and stuff, like I said, that had nothing to do with powerlifting.
Right.
But where I was able to spend 6 to 8 weeks just training, rehab, prehab, and I
While
was back.
incorporating that
Right.
additional heavy session.
Right.
So you've increased your
So
workload
again,
a
it's
ton.
well, and that's what it did is
Yeah.
that what it would also do is by nature of how heavy we were using weight for reps in the decline
Right.
that we would never see
Right.
on a flat bench.
Right.
So there's this whole mental aspect because you develop when you do 585 for 6 on a close grip decline.
Yep.
When you put 455 pounds in my hands on a flat bench,
Yeah.
this doesn't seem like such a big deal. And so there's some central nervous system training. There's a lot of pros and cons on that. I tend to believe that you can condition the central nervous system and increase the work capacity.
Well, that might be another reason why you like to incorporate that decline instead of the isolation work, because you're still using that neural stimulus where you're bilaterally firing.
Right.
You're using the barbell, you're mimicking that competition movement. Obviously, things are changed, but it's not that isolation movement where it's just unilaterally loaded.
Right, and again, it's one of those things where, which I think is basically what you're saying, there's no movement in the strength world
Right.
that we're doing
Exactly.
this.
Yeah. Right.
Even any strongman events
Right.
that I can.
Or daily living.
Right.
Yeah.
We're meant to push away or pull to us
Exactly.
or to stand up.
Yeah.
Those types of things.
Yeah.
And so that's one of our guidelines. Like I always tell people, look at nature.
Sure.
Like an example where we learn that when people bend at the waist, that's a learned behavior.
Right.
Because if you have an infant that
Or
becomes a
nomadic,
toddler
sure. Yeah.
that is begun to walk,
Mhm.
if you threw your keys in the floor or a toy, the
Easy.
baby would never walk over to it and bend at the waist to pick it up.
No way.
It will walk where its center of gravity is over whatever the item it is
Squat
and will
down.
squat down
That's right.
where it stays balanced.
Yep.
Otherwise, if it bent over,
Yep.
the baby falls over.
That's right.
And so that tells us how we are actually, inclined to work and how we're built to work.
Right.
So that's how the decline kind of came to be. He and Bob and I worked on it to tailor it to what I was doing and how we would teach it going forward. It's a little different than what it was initially, and that's I've been using that now for 15 years.
Awesome. Well, we'll be right back, and we'll show you guys how to get set up for it and some technique.